Toets Zoom, toets Zoom. Toets Facebook, toets Zoom.
fine. So the khona tswa ka ibe. Tla le gari comes. O ya kae?
Heretsena ka mafuriri a itsebisha rona wo. Heretsena ka mafuriri a itsebisha rona wo. Heretsena ka mafuri wo. thobela ke re ya lotšha ke nna moaforika wa mokgathi a mahwiti a mosete a mmaswela a tlhaba ngwanaka ke dia seale kgalemetše ya roa ya topagatodi ya maoro ke la rala ngwala botšhiba a topa lerotse la kgodu ba re lerotse la kgodu a le lewe nna setlogolo sa modiba mmalefokana a kgothwana a mara wa maolo setlogolo sa ngwako wa go ja dinonyana ditlhwafa bašimanyana kgaitšedi a masogana le makgarebe sephološa dikwata ba re moaforika re o kwele o e kana tau o e kana kwena o nyaka eng ka dikobong ka re pelo e thupilwe ke lebetse ka kibakiba ya gešo ke bontšha bakgekolo dithogolo ka re pelo e thupilwe sengumvubu ngumakhasane ngumgasela silo samanzi pelo e thupilwe leleme lona le re ke mopedi thui And I just said my name is Moafrika. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. This is awkward for my Model C self because I can't do all of that. But what I can do is greet you ngachibe and then dimachero watu wote. I'm Shandukani Ompuru Samuraudzi, and I'm going to be one of your hosts alongside Moafrika.
Well, we are excited to be here. Gore re tle re tlhatlhobe ka go kwešiša le go tseba gore maleme a borena re ka tšweletša pele ka mohuta mang. And
what she just said is that we are here and we are going to learn how we can use our indigenous languages in our everyday lives, in mass media, and in different contexts that we find ourselves in here in South Africa.
But thank you. Yes, let's clap. Bare ere tsena tshwanetse go be le motho a bulang dikgoro a re botša gore botshela mare ke kae. That when we enter homesteads, there must be the head of the kraal or the homestead to tell us where is the lavatory, and that they have, put the dogs around the house so that we can be free, in literal sense. We have Professor Susie Graham from UJ, the Vice Dean on the Faculty of Humanities, just to tell us where they've tied the dogs.
Thank you so much. So the facilities are just outside here and down on your left. So good morning, everybody. What a wonderful welcome. It really set the tone for today. Thank you so much. Sanabonani Dumalang Huamora. As the presenter said, I'm Professor Susie Graham, Vice Dean Teaching and Learning in the Faculty of Humanities, and I'm really honored to be able to welcome you all on behalf of the Dean of the Faculty, Prof. Camilla Naidu, to this really important and exciting event. Welcome to all Pendoring's invited stakeholders from the private sector, civil society, and academia, amongst others, who are participating and attending today. Last week, Monday, the 24th of October, we celebrated United Nations Day, and now, through today's proceedings, this Indigenous Language Imbizo activates the UN International Decade of Indigenous Languages 2022 to 2032 in South Africa, which is quite a wonderful thing. Yes, thank you. In the humanities, we believe in the importance of a more multilingual society, and we're proud and happy to be a partner in this platform, which encourages the further development and investment in South Africa's indigenous languages. Our own Department of African Languages, and we have some colleagues from African Languages presenting today, recently began the process of having isiXhosa approved as a new module offering for students at UJ. This move, yes, thank you. This move is an effort to promote the spirit of multilingualism in our teaching and learning strategy in the Faculty of Humanities. And the addition of this language module will enable the department and the university to be of service across a wider range of students. So we're really excited about that. Multilingualism is a very necessary and vibrant characteristic of South Africa's unique and dynamic democracy. South Africa can only realize the true and meaningful potential of an initiative like the UN Decade of Indigenous Languages if we manage to forge a multi-stakeholder partnership between the government, the corporate sector, academia, and civil society. So basically, we need buy-in from all sectors, and we need passion. If you're here today, it means that you are passionate about developing Indigenous languages and multilingualism in South Africa. Interest in and commitment to the development of these languages by many different actors in a society encourages innovation, which in turn sparks further interest and increased commitment, and so a positive cycle begins that can only get better over time. I'd just like to mention that this event is endorsed by the South African Commission for the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, and it is in partnership with MultiChoice Media 24, Caxton, obviously UJ, SABC Radio, the Pan-South African Language Board, the Indigenous Languages Action Forum, Dagbreek Trust, and Atia Kafia. I really, really hope that you enjoy today's experience and that you learn from and are inspired by the exciting innovations showcased at this event. Thank you so much for being here and for participating. Ria leboga, siyabonga, baie dankie. Enjoy. Thank you.
Roribuanga Mandesa, Prof, for being on time. There are 2 TVs over here that are counting down for the speakers. So I'm just letting you know, when you get on stage, you have 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever is up there. And please, please, please do not go over, because then I'm going to start singing a song and then it's awkward for everybody. We're going to ask Mr. Eben Kien from Awards, the general manager, to come do the welcome and explain to us why we're here today.
Another day of 9 to 5 English in this dull cubicle. Joining calls and taking a lunch break shorter than my attention span. So I need to answer questions about why it's Gqeberha and not PE. Having non-stop discussions about quagmires and why quinoa is not popular in Kwakwa. Oh, everything feels like a quiz. What am I, a Harlequin? I need a coffee. Ukakamba took the day off. Now Gondile is making my macchiato. I tell her my tongue needs something nice, because it spent all day pretending to be someone else. And you know, sometimes your Xhosa just wants to Xhosa. Let your language loose and enter your work by 23 September 2022 at pendoring.co.za.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Eben Kien. I'm the General Manager of the Pendoring Awards. Welcome to the first Indigenous Language Imbizo. This will be the first of 10 Imbizos that Pendoring will hopefully initiate throughout the International Decade of Indigenous Languages 2022 and 2032. Thank you to our partners and sponsors, the UJ Faculty of Humanities and UJ Multilingual Languages Services Office. They are co-hosts and graciously made the space available to us. The South African National Commission for UNESCO, which is activating the International Decade of Indigenous Languages here in South Africa. Alongside the Pan-South African Language Board, the Department of Sport, Art and Culture, Media 24, SABC Radio, Caxtons, CakeNet, Arte Kafia, Dagbreek Trust, Jacaranda FM, and the Indigenous Action Language Forum, who all helped to make this event possible today. We hope to continue extending that list, because the point of today is to get all sectors of South African society to buy into a multi-stakeholder partnership, or to just plant the seed of that to happen. Our goal today is to not only discuss and think about the importance of our Indigenous languages and multilingualism in South Africa, but to begin forging this multi-stakeholder partnership that can tackle these issues over the next decade. We know that government is working on this, and we have members from the South African National Commission for UNESCO, the PANSALP, and the DSAC, the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, in the room today. And we will also hear today from various people in academia, the private sector, some startups, and the media about what they're doing and thinking of doing over the next decade. We believe that it is vital to work together to achieve our common goals around Indigenous languages and multilingualism. I want to thank the mothers that gave us these languages. Our time is short today, so we won't be able to necessarily hear from everyone in the room. But if you have ideas or thoughts about a multi-stakeholder partnership, what it should entail, and how it could be funded, because we want to announce major prizes in the next year in technology and innovation in the field of Indigenous language. You're welcome to mail us at hello@pendoring.co.za, and you're also welcome to engage on Twitter using the hashtag #LetYourLanguageLoose. Thank you to our speakers, our panelists, the MCs, and all of you attending today. We hope you enjoy this Imbizo and invite you to continue to engage in further development of our Indigenous languages and becoming a more multilingual society. Thank you.
Malome COVID-19 o re bontshitse hore dilo di ka fetoga, and we can also interact with people wherever they may be. And Dr. Usindiwe Makoma has something to say for us.
This Imbizo is part of the United Nations Decade on Indigenous Languages. These are our languages. Here in South Africa, we have about 10 or more indigenous languages. Those are your languages, part of your identity. If you are South African first, and then umXhosa, umZulu, umSotho, umNdebele, iShangaan, etc., etc., etc. What is your role in the maintenance and growth of these languages, of your identity? Are you going to let your language die, or are you going to get engaged as you ought to? It's your responsibility. It's your language. Those who were here before you left it alive. Are you going to let it die? Or are you going to be so into yourself, into your language, that you embrace it and use it in creative ways? Whatever is in your heart, you sing in your language. You dance, you write, whatever it is, use your language too. It's part of who you are. You know, love yourself. And that self includes the language that you first heard when you were still in your mother's belly. That's why indigenous languages, or we call certain languages, mother tongue. Mother tongue means that's the language everybody hears first when they are still in utero. And that's the language that nature has so engineered you that you are best fitted to master. Yes, you can use other languages. You can learn them and use them. NgingumXhosa. I write ngesiXhosa. I also write in English. That's the other language I use, my second language. My English is supposed to be not bad, but I don't kid myself I'm English speaking. Xhosa is my first language, the language my mother gave to me. Then I went to school and learned this one. And science says also, if you master mother tongue, you are best fitted to learn another language. So master your mother tongue, love your mother tongue, embrace your mother tongue, and use it. Let it flourish through you and leave it alive and thriving for posterity. That's your role. Thank you.
Science also says if you speak multiple languages, like I do, and most Venda people do, you'll be very smart. And every time people are like, oh, Venda people are so smart, how do you guys do it? We are not. We were just forced to learn everyone else's languages here in Gauteng. So we keep hearing about this decade of indigenous languages, and I'm going to ask Dr. Sibongile Masuku, who is the Honorary National Chairperson of the Culture Thematic Area from the South African Commission for UNESCO, to come and contextualize it for us.
ngimasuku ngihlane ngithunda bathole ngumthondo wethu sengihaqa ngengele rovele ukuthi inkomo kaZulu. Ngiyajabula kuba nani namhlanje, and I'm very enthused to see the youth because my agenda is very forthright as the chairperson of culture to UNESCO. If you do not hand over the baton, you actually lose the race. Ours is to hand over the baton, and as we hand over the baton, we must remember we're part of the race. The culture sector is an aging sector, and we need to be forthright to begin to say, how do we hand over this baton? And this baton is the baton of languages, because without languages, we don't have an identity. Our language brands us, and that is what is critical about this meeting today, and I'm very, very excited to be part of it. First of all, I need to be frank to say that I'm not just only the chairperson of the culture sector. I'm a lecturer in heritage at Mpumalanga University. They pay my salary, so I need to acknowledge them in case they are watching and they're saying, how come she's there? She didn't even fill the forms for being away from work. So I also hold another chair. I'm also the chairperson of Amazwi Museum. And in Amazwi Museum, as the chairperson, even though we are promoting indigenous languages, the very fact that we are promoting indigenous literature, we are, by default, promoting indigenous languages. I'm also involved in the African Union, the Africa we want to be, the Africa we want to see. And I am involved in the Languages Week, the promotion of Languages Week, which takes place in January and February. So I'm encouraging everybody to be involved in this initiative. Having said that, in the National Commission, we look at a number of conventions. I'll be specific to the 1972 convention. Within this convention and the safeguarding of intangible heritage can only be expressed through languages, and this is indigenous languages. Otherwise, we would have lost the cause. So besingasahambi ngolayini. Asihambe ngolayini. So, as we safeguard indigenous languages, we also need to be mindful that the more we accommodate other languages within our languages, we are actually heading for disaster. So it's critical that even though the convention says we must allow the languages to progress, but we must be mindful, because safeguarding as well is not just saying things must just go haywire. We need to begin to be mindful of how we introduce other words within our languages that begin to allow continuity within our languages. Because the more and more we mix and dilute and appropriate other words within our languages, we're heading for disaster. The language is over, it says, and we would have lost the brand. So ours here as the National Commission is to also recognize that these indigenous languages filter into all the conventions. As we begin to look at the 1972 convention, we look at rock art. That rock art, even though it's ingrained in those rocks, we still need the language to interpret it. We need the sand people to begin to say in their own languages what is within that, what is being interpreted within that rock art as we look at those universal values. As we look at the convention, the 2005 Convention on the Diversity of Cultural Expressions, those expressions cannot come to be and be bold unless we begin to forthrightly push our languages aboard to begin to do that cultural expression. So as we do our plays, as we do our poetry, let's be focused in the sense that these conventions are our medium to place ourselves in the fore in the national platforms with our languages. As we begin to look at issues around illicit trafficking, even though one might think that we're looking at illicit trafficking in the sense of tangible heritage, our languages, we must hold them dearly. When we look at our stories, when we look at our lullabies, Maliam, Maliam, ngiyawushona lejikeni lami, ekhaya mgitsi, ekhaya Elias, ekhaya mashayinji ngasilumi, injikho ngothayi ngasilumi, ungibona nje nginganangu. That's Isiswati. The moment it's appropriated, illicitly trafficked and used in linguas, in music in the US, that's our language. We need to begin to have policies that guard against the appropriation of our languages, the appropriation of our lullabies, because our languages are our economy, our languages are our money. So we need to begin to come up with policies that begin to recognize that these are our languages. And the baton, I'm very forthright with this, and the SG knows very well. In all the meetings that we have promoting the conventions, I insist that we have the youth. I insist that the youth is not there online, but that the youth is there physically, that they can begin to network with each other and they begin to take this baton and run away with it, because we are living as elders on borrowed times. You may think I'm very young, but I'm very old right now. And I am if that baton has not been handed over to the youth, we would have failed in our responsibility. So I'd like to thank the communities that are here, particularly the business community, because they have a very, very important role. Some of them don't recognize that they have an important role to play, because if they want us to buy their products, they need to begin to use our languages, not chifri, because chifri does not come from here, from our umbilical. Once it hits our umbilical cord, then we know this is a brand or this is an item that we can buy. Thokozani.
Siyathokoza Ndwandwe. Mamotlha ke bongwa thabo fodile. Usually, when you are emceeing, you will stand up. But today, the translation is that I'm having it easy. You would agree?
Yes, we're sitting at a talk show.
Yeah, it's a talk show.
Yeah.
Maybe we are channeling,
Yeah.
Indigenous Language Talk Show.
My inner
hint,
Oprah.
hint, SABC, hint. Yeah, so if you're wondering, it's like, why are they sitting down? Or maybe it's because of Africa is wearing heels. No, it's not me. I mean, when we hear about, the baiting being passed on, we are aware that it's also important that we teach our children. Otherwise, we'll be starting to, I think also it is what is happening now, that the mother tongue is being, handed over when it's not even, a baby stage where you have to now, literally be breastfed the language. It's starting when children are now 7 years, 10 years, 11 years. But Nalibali has been doing fantastic work. And we have Umis, Ngabagazi, Mate, Gina. This is some of the things, the pronunciations that we are here of to learn other people's languages. A round of applause.
Good morning to everyone in the room. I'm Ngabagazi Matekina, the pronunciation. I'm really honored to be here, and really it's been quite a journey for us as Nalibali. I believe most of the people who are here they do know Unalibali, I'm hoping. But I will give a brief. But just a sideline, I was conflicted as I was growing up because I could not differentiate between mother tongue and home language. And because my mother is Xhosa and father is Zulu, so I will always say I'm Xhosa because my mother is Xhosa. And home language is the language that we speak at home. So now I'm getting to understand that. Who are we then at Nalibali? Nalibali is turning 10 this year. We've been promoting a culture of reading, especially to children, where we're hoping and we're helping children to fall in love with reading. We know that how reading was introduced to us as adults, and we even developed negative connotations towards it, because a lot of people treat reading as a formal exercise that happens in a formal setting. And as Nalibali, we believe that reading should be enjoyable. It is enjoyable, and it should be fun, it should be enticing. And for children need to develop positive relationship with books, positive relationship with reading. They should have positive experiences of reading. And we can help them develop that if they are engaging with enticing content. So we develop a lot of stories in multiple languages, in all the languages in the country, so that children can learn and engage regularly with content that connects to their culture and their language. And we believe that that should happen from early ages. So we know that as parents, we speak to our children even when they are 2 days old, knowing that they don't understand what you're saying, but we know that we're planting a seed that is going to grow, and a seed that is going to help them to have a sense of self, to feel their connection in the world, and to understand their social setting through what has been introduced by their parents. By the time they get to school, they already know so much about the world, because from home, that's where learning is happening. So as Nalibali, we then promote that adults who are in the living space of a child should nurture and promote the use of home language in the stories that they tell the children. We know that children, they are very much attracted to stories, but then not children only, even as adults, we know that we go to church every time to be told a story about Jesus. There are stories everywhere, we're surrounded by stories, but we know that if you want to introduce a child to a language, tell them a story. Any story, we come from different generations, so the stories that we tell to our children are very interesting and enticing. As we are in this journey of promoting home languages, then Duolingo, which is an American company, they approached us as Nalibali to say, we have about 103 languages, language courses in our language learning app, but we would like to introduce an isiZulu course. We need your help so that the content will be relevant, and it should not be a translation from English, it should be done by the native speakers. And we had that engagement from last year, and we involved our content developers, and we involved our isiZulu native speakers. And this year in August, the isiZulu course was launched. And to date, we have 165,000 people worldwide who are learners of isiZulu through that app. So the app itself is not a formal learning platform that you can find in a school environment. It is tailor-made for each individual based on your level of proficiency in isiZulu. So it helps you to discover the patterns of the language on your own, and also you go with your own pace. So later this year, they're going to add more skills to the course so that people can deepen their proficiency. And also, we are currently recruiting alpha testers for isiXhosa. So we're going to have 2 Nguni languages which are being learned across the globe. The purpose of this app is not just to give people a deep structure of how the languages work, but it's just for people to hold a simple, basic conversation. And also, we've seen that the uptake is not just international, it's also locally. Just last week at DBE, one of the non-Nguni speakers said they already have registered in the app and they're learning isiZulu. So we believe that the benefits will extend way beyond what the original purpose was, because we know that at home level, there are households where parents, they speak a different language to their child, and the language is a barrier there, so there's no proper connection. And we know that in workplaces, also working diverse, we work with diverse workforce, so it's difficult for people to connect. Then if we can learn our languages, each other's languages, it's not just about the language, but it helps you to respect the culture that comes or goes with the language. So we believe that it will extend the benefits way beyond what it was originally intended for. And we're hoping for more languages to be added to the app. It's quite very simple. It uses a smartphone. You can download it. It's Duolingo. Then you look for isiZulu. Then you're good to go. So we are really excited about that. That's what we came today to present to you, that we are taking Nguni languages across the globe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ngabakazi. It is good to know that there are people who are already doing the work of promoting our indigenous languages, not only in South Africa, but globally too. One day, nachivenda chiteyoshika nepo, because we want other people to be able to say instead of nda in the right context. I get too many ndas from women, and I'm like, no, chomi, that's not for you. So next we have Ms. Jolene Phillips from UJ, who is a lecturer in Afrikaans method, Afrikaans literature and translation theory, who's going to be talking to us about literature and language.
Een mens wil onthou wees vir jou taal, ek sweer het. Een mens wil vir jou plek maak tussen taal. Doodse taal praat nog nie. Ek moet eers daar uitkom. Hoeveel keer is ons mense nie gestraf met oorlewenis nie? Bintang, ek gaan vir jou 'n kleptokrasie bou. En aan die buitekant gaan julle sien hoe ons by mekaar steel om stemme te lig. All right. I'll just take this out. So, Kite says, goeiedag. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to have the opportunity to address such a distinguished audience. Let me start by saying a few words about my background for the purpose of this short address. My name is Jolene Phillips, and I am part of Languages, Cultural Studies, and Applied Linguistics as a lecturer in the Afrikaans unit, so I feel very at home there. Today I wish to share with you my journey as a poet and the journey of writing Bintang and Ngau gedig, Gansbaai, from Gansbaai, where I was born. The abstract that I just recited for you comes from my poetry collection, epic poem. It's the first, to my knowledge, the first time the epic poem is written in Afrikaans about an indigenous woman by an indigenous woman, black woman. I came across the legend, or rather the story of Bintang when I was visiting a restaurant in Hermanus. Now, usually the funny thing about when you live in your own village, sometimes the tourist shows you your place better than you know. So they invited me to Bintang's cave, and I sat there and I looked at the oohs and the ahs with the whales and all of that happening. And then I turned the menu around, and it said like Bintang lived here. She swore a lot. She caught fish, and all of the stereotypes that has now been afforded to the indigenous woman. But the thing that pushed me to the journey of writing this epic poem was that it said Bintang was the last strandloper to live here. And I was like, no, she is not. I'm sitting right here. She has not left. And it was very interesting to me how even sometimes celebrating the first or the last can be an erasure of an entire people. And I sat there and I thought to myself, okay, so she's not the last, but where do I begin? Who do I ask? I go into the archives. I'm looking for the word Bintang. I'm looking for the words, and I cannot find it anywhere. And on my journey, I decided I went to the Bleek archives, all of these places, and I couldn't find the word Bintang because I needed a place of reference to start with. But I couldn't find anything until I sort of gave up because, you know, an epic poem needs to celebrate the language, and the story becomes the story of its nation. It embodies the culture and the language of that nation. And how am I supposed to start writing about this woman who I can't find any information from? But what I did have was that I am a contemporary indigenous person, living as a person born now, and somebody who comes from a place that, as I was doing this research, I realized that I didn't need the history books to start having a conversation with this woman, that my father and my mother and my family all sat with a fisherman's language that is not really recorded in the Afrikaans dictionaries. And so as a result, my dad's experiences and the things that they call fish and the things that they call people and the names are different to how it exists. And as a result, the work started becoming a vehicle and a container without me knowing it as I was expressing this. But now going back, I think for me, the idea of, so I did some research, and there's this man called S. Seligman, and he wrote that there was about 50 indigenous tribes living in South Africa before colonialism came. And by the 1800s, there were about 3 left. And that really sat with me. How do you eviscerate not only a language, but a people? What needs to happen to eviscerate an entire people and its language? Because I've always known that even though my mother and father would leave, that's what the language is passed on to us. But then how does it happen that the language can't even be passed on anymore? And then I start to think about, like, what is that? What is that? It's genocide, it's war, it is disease, it is so many things. It is apartheid. A lot of these are a few terms that I can come up to say to you about what happened to those people, and I think, so what is my stake in this? What am I doing for this to continue? Am I doing that? That even though I'm having a conversation with an indigenous person, I don't have the language to start thinking or imagining what she could have spoken, because I don't even know what a tribe was called. And we've grouped people together to say Khoisan. But Khoi it's the name for people. But there were, in my area, I found out there were Genekwa, there's the Chokokwas, there's the Chokokwas, there's the language Kwekhovab, there's the Gorana, there's all of these tribes, but we've all just come to call them Khoi. And so I have 1 minute left. Just to go further, I read this by Professor Njabulo Debele wrote in his essay, South Africa, Rediscovering the Ordinary. He said that that South Africa must be open to the possibility of becoming a new language. This may happen not only at the level of the vocabulary, but also with regard to grammatical adjustments. And I thought to myself, that is what we need to become. We need to be open to becoming a new language. And I don't know what that's going to sound like, but I do know that it's in the hands of the creative writer. That I remember what happened, for example, with Diana Ferris, who wrote, "I've Come to Take You Home." So engaging with the past of Sarah Bartman, writing in response to that, that made that she could bring the body of Sarah Bartman home. It also meant that the French acknowledged it in their legislation. And so what I'm trying to say is that the power of creative writing is more than just telling our stories, but it is also has the ability to change or to pass on the baton. And so I just like to end with saying that the answer is really quite easy with regards to how we go from now on. I think the emblem for the South Africa, means diverse people unite. And I think just by learning the clicks of this language and learning the First Nation language, I'm already starting to make including my own language, languages into the language that I speak rather than taking other people. So leaving with
Keise Gangans, Keise Gangans, Keise Gangans, Keise Gangans. We are learning. And as we learn, I think much as I'm against the code mixing and code switching, it seems to be, somehow a viable method to try and retrieve some of these languages to understand one another.
Why are you against it?
Well, I mean, I would love to employ a translator here. Thank you very much. And, just speak my language. And I guess we are almost at 40%. So, yeah, have a translator and give a sepedi, but, yeah, that's another session. That's another session. As we are trying to develop, these languages, the African language that we want to have, the South African language that we want to have, we need words. And Amazwi Museum for Literature is here to tell us more about the South Africa during the decade of indigenous languages. Help me welcome Dr. Makosazana Rasana, okay, Gasana, is part of the learning and the unlearning. A round of applause.
Molweni, igama lam nguNomakhosazana Rasana, Rholi Hlahla Rasana. I am from Gqeberha. I work at Nelson Mandela University. I teach languages there. isiXhosa, English as second language, and philosophies in language teaching. Also, I am a board member of PENSAP, but now I've come as a council member of Amazwi. I have come to tell you what we do at Amazwi and what is our vision about African languages, South African languages, and languages in the Eastern Cape in particular, because we were given a new mandate as Amazwi to turn things around. Amazwi before was called NELM, National English Literary Museum. Even though it was situated within Eastern Cape context, it was not serving Eastern Cape context. It was also focusing on English. So it was very imperative that where you are, you serve the people around you. And hence, the minister gave us a new mandate, hence the name, Amazwi, South African Museum of Literature, so that we become inclusive and we start at home. So I'll give you a brief description about Amazwi, and then thereafter tell you what is our vision as Amazwi. As I have said, Amazwi is in the Eastern Cape, where I was born in Makanda. It was changed from NELM to Amazwi, and when it was changed to Amazwi, it was given a new mandate. And when we joined as council members, we had to take up that mandate and see it works so that people around Makanda, in particular, Eastern Cape, as well in South Africa, are also included in the manuscripts that are kept at Amazwi. So it was imperative for us to come up with a new mission, with a new vision, and target which area are we going to start with. So in our first step, we had to start at home, that is in Grahamstown, Makanda. You all know that at Makanda, the languages that are there, in fact, even in the Eastern Cape, is isiXhosa. So we decided to pilot our project starting with isiXhosa, knowing for the fact that we will move towards all other South African indigenous languages. And in that sense, we're referring more on the African languages because they are not yet developed. We are struggling to get manuscripts. So I'll talk to the audience here and the people out there to come forth with African languages manuscripts so that we can also house them at Amazwi in Makanda. We have also another satellite which is in Craddock. Now it is called Nguba. That is also full of heritage, but we want to house this heritage so that the Amazwi becomes a hub that houses all the African languages, indigenous languages. Now, let me come to the vision of Amazwi. When we took up as council members, given this huge mandate, we had to look at the vision and reimagine it and re-envisage it. So last month, we had our strategic planning meeting whereby we had to set targets as to what are we going to do, how are we going to do it, when are we going to do it. So our vision is, starting from today, from last week, because it was last week, Amazwi South African Literary Museum of Literature envisions being recognized as the dynamic museum, acquiring, preserving, and making accessible a literary collection of distinction that represents all linguistic communities of South Africa. So it means all the languages of South Africa, all the indigenous languages of South Africa will be housed at Amazwi, the literary works. What is our mission? We wish to collect and research all South African literature, engage with our varied communities. I emphasizing that because we are multilingual. In promoting the richness and the diverse literature and literary heritage through permanent, mobile, and visual exhibition. Remember, this is a museum. Multilingual programs, publications, educational activities, and special events promote enjoyment and awareness in future generation of museum goers. Remember, Dr. Masuku was talking about the youth that is not supposed to be left behind. So that is our duty. We have to pass that baton so that our languages live. Also, we have to serve a hub of social activity and stimulate the interest of regional, national, and international audience. So for us to be able to do so, then it means we need to develop our indigenous languages, and we also need to embrace multilingualism. The organization further undertake to build on the diversification of collection. That's why I said before, please bring forth those manuscripts. We need to build that museum so that it lives. All the languages could be evident when you enter our auditorium, as well as when we take you around, you see all languages and people of South Africa being represented there. Also, it is very important for us to increase the access so that we can be able to deploy manuscripts online using mobile exhibition platforms underpinned by a broader diversity through digitalization. It's not our language. Digitalization, because now we're moving into e-literature, into e-heritage. So it's very important for us also to move into that space. So it is very important that we, as the people of Amazwi, expand our mandate so that everybody is included in different forms. We also felt that it is important to have a permanent collection, not that only a permanent collection, but that collection must expand time and again so that it represents the time and the people of that period. Because sometimes you'll find out that because it's a museum, you think you're supposed to have old artifacts, yet things are evolving and there's a lot of development that is going out there. So it was very important for Amazwi to have an attractive national policy instrument that will talk to who we are, where we are, and what we do. But all this vision and mission, it is underpinned by a number of priorities. One that is coming from the government's 7 priorities to drive the National Development Plan that was enacted in 2019. Also, it was very important for us to look at the priorities that are talking to us as the museum, because we want to develop the languages, and those languages have to be living languages that are going to make us to come together. Hence, we always talk about social cohesion. So priority number 1, priority number 2, priority number 4, priority number 7, priority number 6, priority number 5 were central when we were crafting our mission and vision. Also, we looked at the vision of Agenda 2063 with also what was under the Sustainable Development Goals. Remember, there's one big one there, which is education. And most of the time, we tend not to look very seriously in that a Sustainable Development Goal. But under a vision of Agenda 2063, aspiration number 1, aspiration number 2, aspiration number 3, and 4, most of them were talking to the museum. Then it means we are fulfilling before the declaration of the Decade of Indigenous Languages 10 years from now. We have been looking forward, coming up with ways to plan our targets. And in that way, it was pleasing to us to see to it that we are adhering to the decade, the declaration of the period between 2022 and 2023 by the UN and UNESCO as the very upfront agency to see to it that we fulfill the development of languages, because this decade is about developing African languages so that by the time it's 2032, no one speaking the indigenous languages is left behind and no one is put aside. Remember, if you don't use these languages, you are at the periphery. So that is the vision of a Amazwi museum, because we want to include everybody. So we'll call all the writers, the poets, and other people who are savvy in technology, because we want to involve our manuscript also in a digital form. Because there at Amazwi, there's a cold room. That cold room is where we keep the manuscript. But now, if those manuscripts are not kept well, then it means we lose them. Therefore, digitalization is the way to go. And also, we are there to promote multilingualism, multiliteracy, and different forms of heritage in indigenous languages. Thank you.
Enkosi kakhulu ma. I also went to school in Makanda, so I do thetha isiXhosa kancinci. Next, we're going to ask Miss Marli Kutsia from Viva to come give us her speed pitch. These speed pitches are basically just to show the work of people who are already doing incredible work in Indigenous language, and we are very excited to have some people here who are doing that.
That nice music.
I think it's a video.
Goeiemorgen, dames en heren. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marli Kutsia, and I am the Executive Director of Viva Afrikaans. It stands for the Virtual Institute for Afrikaans. We are a research institution, and we make use of technology, digitalization, and e-publications to promote one of many indigenous languages in South Africa, Afrikaans. We also do research. In that way, we make sure that all the information that we do supply our users internationally and locally are of top-notch standard. Today, it's such a wonderful experience for me to stand here and to introduce one of the 126 products and services that Viva provides for the language community. I do have a small test pitch speech to show you just one of the technological projects that we do have. So if you can start playing the Yes, let's look at the Lees and Luister technology app that we have made. So all our information are on the website. You can just search for Viva Afrikaans or visit our website www.viva-afrikaans.org. There you can register. Registration is for free, and you can go and download on any platform, Google app or the iOS app, the Lees en Luister feature that we do have here. The reason why we developed this is because we know that learners are currently struggling to expand their mother tongue and home language vocabulary. They are struggling with spelling, they are struggling with grammar, and that's why we developed this to assist with people enhancing and also celebrating reading in their mother tongue languages. Like you can see, there's graphics for people to read, and then it uses the same principle as karaoke. There will be a sign showing you which certain word are currently read by a native speaker of that language. So you can also change the text, the font size, the speed, how fast or how slow you want to read, because we do know and understand that people's reading abilities are not on the same level. So this also is why we categorized the different reading skills. So you can start reading from an early age up until a very, very bigger text or longer text for mother tongue languages, persons who want to read, or people who want to learn more about Afrikaans, say maybe, for instance, not a native speaker. You can see that here, you can see 35 jaar gelede het 'n bus met 42 leerlinge. You can also skip to read where you paused the session. You can also close the app and listen to the app, and you don't even have to read. What's wonderful about using this platform is that it not only promotes reading abilities, but also listening abilities. This is free of charge, downloadable on any iOS or Google platform. You can install it on your cell phone, and this is a project that we usually, every month, there will be new information for readers to read. There you can see all the information, and that is my quick pitch about the Lees en Luister. And one of our thank you. And one of our mandates at the Virtual Institute Afrikaans is also there to promote and work together with the indigenous languages of Afrikaans to make our technologies.
I'm going to stand up because my watch is telling me it's time to stand up.
Okay. Clever watches. You see, we're getting there.
Yes. And then I'm going to call onto stage Florence Kikine from SABC Radio and Azelia Morkel from VIA.
Mm-hmm. That nice music, please. Hey.
I'm glad.
So it is an Imbizo, meaning that the audience will be joining us. It won't be a band of four. So you can just, take notes. Wherever you would like to contribute, you're more than welcome. And like I said, we're here to introspect, come up with resolution, and we have 9 more years to make sure that whatever that, some of the ideas that are birthed from here, some of, contributions become reality. I get about 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
Yeah.
Mingwaya fumi, nachipenda.
Welcome, ladies. You're looking lovely. It's like, whoa.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So do you. I was thinking that the entire time.
I wish I wore sneakers, but yeah. We are, as we are talking about the indigenous languages and mass media, and, when we're introducing you somehow work with media houses and, trying to preserve a number of things that involves languages. Thank you so much for the work that you are doing. That's why we are here, and we want to, blast the information. I believe that you have something to share before we get, deep into the conversations, just to hear some of the ideas that you have, starting points, even if you maybe, you spark a direction for our conversation. We can do that. We can start with.
Good day, everybody, and thank you for the invitation. I really am quite honored to be here. Ndugunontobeko, by the way, you can hear Florence. Ndugunontobeko Maseko, uncamano kubona umadlingozi. Yeah. And I am married to a Sotho gentleman who is the owner of the surname Kikine. He paid a lot of cattle for that. So, yeah. I think I love the topic of languages. As I say, in my household, we've got a plethora of different languages that we interact with and intertwine all the time, to a point where we've actually got our own different language now as a household. However, when you look at, from the organization that I represent, which is SABC, and we look at our radio stations, there's always the notion that radio, the indigenous radio stations are speaking to the more mature or senior audiences, which is not true. 52% of our listeners are actually below the age of 28. So that just shows you the interest that people have. But also when you look at language and radio, sometimes we are at a kaleidoscope with the private sector when they want to dilute the language. And we have to keep the purity of that language. And what I love about the Afrikaans people is that they take no prisoners. Take it or leave it, and I appreciate that. And that is the same attitude that we should be taking with our indigenous languages as well, because that's what they mean to all of us. They mean the future, they mean our identity and everything else. So for us, the language is key. Language is everything. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Goeiemorgen. I'm Azelia. I'm the channel head of Via TV. It's channel 147 on DSTV. I just have to get some marketing in. If you haven't watched it before, and firstly, I want to commend you for what you've done with radio. Actually, I think out of all the media forms, that is probably the one that includes most of the indigenous languages the most. It is the easiest to do. I think all of the others try. I mean, with all of the others, I mean television and newspapers or print media also try to, but it's a much slower process. So at VIA, we produce Afrikaans lifestyle content, and I know what you're probably thinking, because when you hear lifestyle, you think reality, cooking, dating, DIY. It's pretty straightforward. But it's not that easy. Afrikaans is a multi-dimensional language. We have to think of the ages of people, where they come from, where they are living now, even their socioeconomic circumstances, and of course their culture. So there are also different dialects and even different rules within the same vernac. Language reflects the characteristics of the speakers, and we try to reflect that in our content, because when you reach people in an authentic way that they can understand, you automatically also get advertisers, which will broaden your local market share.
I think it was Jolyn who mentioned the different dialects and different tribes that exist within a grouping. I know that there's a big issue around AmaXhosa and the fact that they've all been bunched into this Xhosa grouping, but they're not all necessarily Xhosa. So when it comes to things like that and the different dialects, how do you navigate around that within your different spaces?
I'll go first. Yes. We do come across that quite a lot, because with all, I mean, I'll look at the 9 at this stage. With all the 9, I'll leave the Afrikaans for her to take care of. In each one of them, there is different dialects. And I mean, I know we get complaints a lot from the Bapedi people because they've got the different, many different dialects within there to say, but we say it in this Kasilobedu. Yeah. But the thing is, we can't be saying the same thing and have to say it in 100 different dialects at the same time. So we have to find the middle ground. And our job is to find that middle ground and make sure that we cater for everyone. So you will always find that in the language, whether it's the content that we are producing, the presenters and things like that, there's always a variety of different things to cater for everyone. And that's what makes it a little bit difficult with the African languages. Because Afrikaans, you've only got one dialect, I think, based on what I understand, but she will speak to that. But the African languages, you find that in each one of them, there's different dialects. I mean, if you take the Bandebele people as well, you know, the question is, who then do you please, okay? As a broadcaster, it's very important for us to find the most authentic of the dialect or of the conversation that will be more inclusive, because communication and language is about inclusivity. You know, it's that for us is very important, and that's how we have dealt with it a lot of the times. Because amamfengu bazaxelela ngamampondo, and then you are like, oh, at what point am I pleasing everyone? Yeah.
So in Afrikaans, it's probably closer to each other, but there are different dialects. People in the Northern Cape, they are my favorites. They speak differently to people in Cape Town or in Pretoria, for example. Or I come from the Karoo, and I remember that my neighbor, when I moved to Cape Town, said, "Waar kom jy vandaan, want jy praat nie soos die breinmense van hier nie." And I just said, my neighbor said, "Where do you come from? Because you don't speak like the colored people from the Cape." And that was because I was from the Karoo. But we try in television, we try to embrace as much of that as possible and not change it. We have programs like Kom Ons Braai, which some people might know, where we have as many different Afrikaans people as we can possibly find, and really the most vibrant, I want to call it, colorful people you can possibly find in this country will come together in that show and eat together and compete together and just be themselves together. Because I think the more you speak, a language can't die the more you speak it. And it doesn't really matter in what way you speak it, as long as you do.
Because language evolves.
Exactly.
It does evolve. Dankie, danko. You know? So, you know, there will be maybe another quest to say, no, let's keep it to dankie, because we're trying to preserve a language here, people, you know, but yeah. I'm interested, because of you work for media houses. Would it be admin nightmare? Should there be a show about, you know, a show where we only use Afrikaans, or where we use Kilobedu for radio, for instance? I think it can be done, but I would like to hear, you know, your contributions to that. I'm classed under Sepedi, but but no one would be able to understand. And much as I respect the standardization of languages and what it embodies, but also it is to say, I come from a people who are trotting from Zimbabwe, come via Venda, and my language speaks of that. Is there any possibility to have, you know, shows that are channeled for certain speakers, or is it just admin nightmare?
I would say it's a bit of both. I don't want to say there is no admin of it. However, think about it if you're looking at it from a television perspective. I know that I'm speaking on behalf of SABC Radio, but we've got TV as well. Whoever came up with the idea of subtitles, solves quite a lot of the challenges that the different languages may be presenting for other people because you are in a mass space. However, there's also there's a new app that is being released at the moment by the SABC that will actually ensure that when you are watching a program, so if you can change the language to translate it for you into the language that you prefer. So even if the program, for example, is in English and you want to hear it in Silobedu, it can do that. But obviously, remember, there's work that needs to happen at the background in terms of ensuring that that language happens. However, people always look at a language and they see it as a challenge. I don't know where the challenge is. I see it as a great opportunity. Great employment opportunity and great career advancement as well. Because think about it, that those people that speak the Silobedu or any other, for argument's sake, will be actually getting work that they would not have ordinarily gotten. Yeah. So we are actually expanding the work pool, for instance. I mean, I am wearing today, I always make sure that I represent somebody. Today I'm representing Batsonga people. We have the Tonga Music Awards coming up this coming weekend. And the most important thing about those music awards is that everybody who is in the bill are all Batsonga people. They sing in Sitonga and in different dialects within the Batsonga people as well. So there are so many ways of representing and building a language without, let's not find problems or challenges in things. Let's find solutions. Let's always look at it from how do we solve this problem? How do we solve this X going forward? So there's a lot of that actually does happen.
I agree 100%. And I was also going to touch on subtitles, which is becoming more and more important to us. I personally watch everything with subtitles. It drives my family nuts. But I really love it, and I hate it when it says something like, speaks in Zulu. Because then I lose it. We have a sister channel called Honey on channel 173. It's a Pan-African channel. And even though it started as an English channel primarily, it now has many African languages. When I say African, I mean some of our neighboring countries, but also 4 of the South African languages on there. So basically 80 to 90% of it is in vernacular languages. And everything else is, well, all of those programs are subtitled. So there is a way to have everything together and still connect people. And I think that's also a way for everyone to learn.
I subtitle British English. Those accents are a little tough. But what about commercial viability and decisions around that? Do you find that you often have to let go of a really good idea around something that is in a language that isn't necessarily one of the more popular ones, just because commercially it doesn't have as much pull as you would like?
No, not really, not on VIA so far. We are open to absolutely any language. And when I say any language, we have had an ad on television for the Deaf Society that literally had no sound. Our playlisting company sent it back to me and said there's a mistake. So we are open to everything. I don't think there is a limit to that. Actually, I encourage as much versatility and variety as possible. I also think people are slowly but surely moving away from, do I dare say, globalization and just English everything, back to relocalization, because that is the way for the advertiser to really speak to their audience. And like I said, grow market share.
Absolutely, I love that, because 2 weeks ago we were at Pemro, and one of the Nigerian speakers shared with us that the Nigerian government has actually passed a law that says that all adverts on television have to be locally produced. So L'Oreal can have their ad in French, whatever, translated, but when it comes to it must be locally produced. Now, you are bringing in the local flavor. What I love about that is that the local flavor does not only land with language, it also lands with culture. It also lands with promoting certain other things within the communities, such as the definition of beauty, and so on and so on. So for me, that is there are so many opportunities that are actually going to be opening up for the Nigerians. And I bet you probably South Africans are thinking the same thing as well. But let's go back and think about the commercialization and what makes those ads great and wonderful. Think about any ad that has stood out for you, okay? All of those, almost all of them, I'm willing to put into bet that there was something that was local, something that the language that actually that pushed it into a different realm of that particular commercial. Whether it is just the one word, when I say to people Ayoba, what do you people think? You don't have to think twice about it. But what they did was, and it's something that many companies do. I know that King Price, for example, they had an ad, whether you were offended by it or you were not offended by it, about Lobola. So there is commercialization, there is viability of commercialization. And also the other thing is, that is why, from an SABC radio perspective, we encourage organizations to actually use the African languages in their scripts when they do their ads, because it then resonates better. And if you think about many of the, I don't want to offend anybody, a particular car brand, their ads, what makes those ads stand out, besides the fact that the girls love that particular brand of a car and the boys love to pick up the girls with that particular brand of the car, their ads actually are so localized. So they are so localized, they use the local language, they promote the language, and also they are not also sitting on one language, because what I've noticed is that corporates seem to think that just add this is Zulu and it's all sorted. No, it's not. It's not sorted. It's not sorted at all. There are so many different languages, and what I love about what the new brand of music, for argument's sake, they've actually made sure that they've included almost every language in piano, but even though it started as Zulu, but there's a whole lot of inclusion of different languages. Those are the things that will build a language, you know, and which is why when you look at radio, for instance, a lot of the things will focus mainly on the youth. We're not excluding the other markets, but the whole point is to build something that will carry on for decades to come, or hundreds of years to come.
It's true what they say about radio people. They will talk and talk. I'm very savvy about the time. We have just so much to unpack, and you know, on the periphery of our talk. Questions from the floor, I think? We have a hand here.
Hello, everyone. Is it working? Oh,
Yes.
Yeah. My name is Tandile. I'm from City of Johannesburg. I'm a language practitioner. My question is directed to SABC. The first one, for someone like me who is in the field of languages, yes, I understand there is a standardization process, but for many people, they don't know that. And unfortunately or fortunately, I'm from the subgroup of Amampondo, which is, so I know many of us, they feel that our dialect is very inferior. And so I just wanted to understand, do you have any programs where you would do awareness and teaching so that we can understand? Because as much as you said, language issues are not difficult, but in reality, like you said, it can be very challenging to accommodate everyone. But I think if there can be education, that there's actually nothing wrong with how you speak. It's because of the geographical, where you are located, it's because you have got influence of this language and that. So now it ends up, if there's only gonna be the Ngqika dialect, if I'm making an example. So those ones whom their language is mostly used, they will feel like they are superior than the other ones. So I think if you can have programs where you bring awareness and teaching about the dialects within the languages. And then another one, it's code switching. I'm not gonna mention the station, but I was so disappointed. I even told my colleague, because I would open that station with the hope that I'm gonna learn more vocab because I'm a translator. But I was so disappointed and I was disgusted. I'm no longer listening to that channel because it's not just code switching, it's naturalizing words. But we do have those words, but they would choose to. I understand maybe they want to be accommodative, but in radio, they can be so careless. In most radio stations that I've listened. So do you have people who are checking what is quality control to check the language? Each and every show or if it's breakfast show, who manages that, okay, after the show, you guys, you use these words and while we have. Because, I mean, for now, I would say radio, it's the strongest, for now, it still remains the strongest source for languages. I mean, there you can even know the intonation, the pronunciation. So now, if we're going to find presenters using, and believe me, you understand, I mean, they speak, they're so free, like they're using the slang like the street language. Okay, it's fine, but well, people there are opening that because they want to understand the language. Thank you. I'm so sorry for taking long.
Another one.
You want to answer before? Okay, let's take another hand. Press for time. There, the back.
I'm here. I have the mic.
Oh, okay, you have the mic.
I have the mic. I have power. Okay, dumelang. Lebitso la ka ke Selwane Netjibale. But le nna dikgomo di patetswe Netjibale. Hantle ke kgosi. Me ke kine ke a o bona. So I don't want to be long, but I want to touch on the point of advertising. It's disappointing. Advertisers, you can come here and say what you say, but advertisers, I know they say they pay, so they are way or the highway. So the SABC is under siege from advertiser and advertising agencies. And I think that needs to come from the government. You are not coping when it comes to that. I can make an example. My colleague here has touched on that. By the way, I don't know whether to call myself a language practitioner or what, but we have a coming language practitioners board that's going to, when it comes, government things. But what I want to say is that, as an example, our languages have words, and you mustn't believe people when they say our languages are inadequate. We can't have come for more than 100 of years speaking our languages and come and be told now or no. If it's an example, empty, if a thing is empty, we must just say emeti. What is that? And it's on radio as we speak. There's emeti. What is that? When bottles are empty, we have a way of saying it in Sesotho. So I think that's disappointing. And so I wanted to talk about a lot of things, but they have nothing to do. I see that the panel here is about radio. But I think one of the things you spoke about, Ayoba Me Kikine, I think we have to be careful about that. If we talk about period of language, we have to, there's a lot of tsotsital going around advertising agencies thinking that, no, this is the way our youth speak. Yes, they speak like that. We have a way of speaking when we're at home with our children, and I think as we encourage them to know our languages, Let's not teach them Tosital. And radio is very powerful. Let me tell you, radio is powerful. And bo ayo babao baluna bao kitosital. Let's acknowledge that. So we have to be careful as we encourage our children to learn our languages, our cultures, that we do not encourage them to take street culture that is not actually conducive to their education and their morals. So we have to be careful about that. Just because it's something that is spoken by blacks doesn't mean that it's okay. It's not always okay. So let's be careful about that.
Thank you. Maybe we can answer those ones while Sis Busi is taking the mic to the gentleman up there.
Okay. When the content producers who are the presenters, everything happens in real time. So whatever they speak, it is not necessarily censored in terms of this is what you must say, but there are guidelines in terms of what needs to be said by a particular content producer at that particular time. And yes, there is always an issue about, we've spoken about the one some dialects being given a much more greater space than others, which is why I said it doesn't mean that everything must you just add this is Zulu and that's the end of it. South Africans are not only Zulu speaking. There are different languages, and within each language there are different dialects. You are not going to win the battles every day. We must just be also mindful of that we don't lose the war on language by focusing on the small battles. What we do need to do, though, within those battles is to channel them so that in the end we are victorious. So for me, I think that is quite important. It is unfortunate that sometimes there are ads that are actually slip through and they go through the process. And I think the most important part is to actually speak to the advertiser. Because the advertiser, as you say, cash is king. And that impact has actually happened on television. We see it not only within the SABC channels, also with other channels as well, where the dilution of the language has happened over and over and over. Now we've had two things that have been presented today. The one presented the purity of the language, that we should keep the language, we should do this, we should try and do this. The other one spoke of the evolving language. How then do we find the middle ground as far as the evolution of the language and the purity of the language? And amampondo mise all of those different dialects that may exist within the Xhosa space also exist in the Bapedi, as I've said, they exist in Setswaneng as well. So yes, SABC does have the different programs that speak to, in terms of educating people about the different languages, the different dialects, and I think perhaps there is an opportunity to probably do more on that, so that there is more inclusivity. I think at the end of the day, it's more about inclusivity. There's more inclusivity as far as language is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman at the back with the question.
Thank you. Mine is going to be simple questions, but also I want to ask this question, not to you, but to the House, on the issue of the different ethnies that we are focusing on. What do we want as South Africans? Do we want to be so divided into small groups that are having dialects? Or also do you want to be taken into another level where you say the Sotho group languages, which people can understand each other, they can, yes, there are varieties because of the regions, but across the board, not only in South Africa, across the boundaries, they can make a bigger influence. If you are a truck driver, for instance, You speak one of the Sotho group, you go to Botswana, you survive. You go to Zambia, you survive because there's a language called Lozi. It's Lozi in Zambia. You go to Malawi, you survive because there is Chanya. And even in Tanzania, there's Chihuahua. Now, what do we want? Do we want to remain a Molobedu, which is very important, I'm not undermining it, in an enclosure somewhere? Or do you want to be an African that is able to transcend the artificial borders that were brought to us? And that is the biggest question that media and also advertising should look at in this 10 year. And it's a question that we have to really bring into discussions and debates. I like when we say there is Chitsonga Music Awards this weekend. But then when you listen to Dr. Sindwe Magona was using a term which is regarded as derogative by those people, Ishangan. Where do we want to go? Again, that was not filtered properly here. Then, in terms of those awards, have you crossed the border to Mozambique? Or are we enclosing it to say the artificial borders that were created again by Europeans are then much more important? I'm bringing these questions because when we talk about social cohesion and nation building, are we really talking only about South Africans? Or we say the descendants of the Zulus that have migrated to Zimbabwe are no longer our blood? These are the questions that we have in such debates and open platforms when we think about the cultural aspects of our languages. We really deepened the debate. I want to close to, which has been emphasized, about the issue of culture. There was an advert that was running at Umhlobo NN until I called them. I said, that is cultural insensitive. I think it was coming from the Western Cape, and there's a sound of a train. Then there's somebody crying, and it's a woman. And out of that, a man comes into the picture and asks, what is happening? What is happening? No, Sipho. You Sipho, feel. And in our culture, a human being doesn't die. There are a lot of those cultural nuances that are not brought into the space in advertising industry. Lastly, on television, I don't know how related are you to GakeNet, but I just want to ask this question. There's a program coming at GakeNet. If it's not here, then that's the question. I'll tell you where I come from. There's a program coming, which is what is this? Housewives of Pretoria. And in that housewife of Pretoria, it's good in Afrikaans. I congratulate that. But the problem is that it's only white. Again, we're talking about different ethnies within the Afrikaans community and Afrikaans language. And I wish in terms of those programs as you've articulated, where you're saying that you are bringing the other voices, the other varieties and other people, that this language basically comes from them when it was started as a kitchen Dutch and being grown into the language it is today and being brought into the space. Then when they speak in the streets of Cape Town, and you say they are recognized as part of the Afrikaans community. Thank you.
So much,
Thank you so much. That's all we're going to take from the floor. But I'm going to give it to you. Unfortunately, you can't. We have gone over time. I do apologize for that. We are more than welcome after the event to stand in the, what do you call it? The foyer. The foyer to discuss anything that we were unable to discuss while people were on stage. But I'm going to give it to you to wrap up.
So quickly, just that last question. So unfortunately, it is not the same channel. Fortunately and unfortunately. I mean, yeah, fortunately in this question's case, but unfortunately, because I'm kind of jealous that they have that show, to be honest. But I do agree with you. And mostly on VIA, we do try to be as inclusive as we possibly can. I can't answer for them, unfortunately. I know that they will probably also, when they cast, look out for those things. So I don't know what happened. But yes, I do think it's something important that we must always remember, and we do try to do it on VIA.
Okay. One thing, you've got 10 seconds. You have 10 years of Indigenous languages coming. What is your one big thing that you would like to see for your channels?
I would want us to continue to reflect what our viewers give to us. So I never want to dictate, I want to reflect.
To build the languages, to build the cultures, to build a sense of community and a sense of inclusivity, to build a sense of individuality within the inclusiveness, but also not just to build it in schools, but also in mass media as well. I mean, take something like the Bandebele people. The South African art is defined by Umam Esther, one woman. The smallest nation in South Africa has defined that, the South African art across the globe. And it is something that is doable. Within the SABC, we've got the Creative Hub, so where we actually do the writing and of the advertisements. And a lot of the ads that we write, we never get any challenges from the different languages or the different groups of people that are actually monitoring, which is very good because these are their languages. Our platforms are their platforms. However, I think as SABC, we need to do more work with the different advertising agencies to educate them as far as all these different nuances are concerned. Because not all of us are Zulu, and yes, I agree, street language does not necessarily represent black language, but street language at the same time represents universalness in the communication space. So there's a place for everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much to you both. Oh my gosh.
A round of applause. Thank you, ladies. Whew, yeah, ne? When the people were talking about the Rainbow Nation, they didn't think that we would get here and be discussing even matters of language, but it's important, and we have 9 years to continue these conversations, and hopefully they will bear some fruits. We have 3 items left before we wrap up. I don't want to, you said this surname better.
Carl Willoughby. It's got a G inside, guys. Carl Willoughby from Nissan Shui, TBWA. An executive creative director. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name's Carl. Hopefully you can all hear me. I'm from the enemy. I'm the ad agency person. Hopefully I'm not. But I'm an executive creative director at TBWA Huntless Caris. We are responsible for a lot of accounts, including MTN, Ayoba, so I'll take some of those notes back. But I'm personally responsible for the output creatively for Nissan. What I'm going to chat to you about is a project we did for Nissan South Africa. Interestingly, Nissan as a global brand, it's a big multinational kind of global brand. So they obviously need to kind of connect with the local audience. I think what resonated with me was what was said about Nigeria, saying that they're only going to kind of flight locally produced advertising. I think that's fantastic, because then we don't have to flight the European art content in the South African market. It doesn't make sense to me. But the challenge with Nissan that we faced was that, as a global brand, trying to resonate with the local audience is quite a challenge. Like your in the automotive industry, VW and Toyota tend to kind of own that space. They see themselves as a technology company that happens to make cars. But the thing that we found is that, with the advent of technology, we're finding that local indigenous languages are being left behind. If you consider, Alexa, Siri, it should be Yebo Siri, not Hey Siri. So I guess the challenge for us is, how do we still favor local or include local indigenous languages while technology still advances? We're going to play a case study, but before that, there's a little quote that I always use to. I use it at every presentation when I try and do locally relevant work, and it's a bit of a slam dunk when I try and sell this work. And it's a very simple quote. It's from Nelson Mandela, and it says, "Speak to a man in a language he understands, and you speak to his mind. Speak to a man in his own language, and you speak to his heart." And every time I start the presentation with that, the work is a slam dunk. We sell work like that. And I think that, for me, from a marketing point of view, is still true. The need to connect with an audience in a relevant way, even if you're a brand like Nissan, is quite important. But if you can do that through language, which is what we try to do with Shui, then hopefully it's more successful. Shui, just shortly, is, with tech, we realize that voice assistant apps like navigation apps like Waze or Google Maps, they don't have Zulu. They don't have really any of the local indigenous languages. They do have Afrikaans, but they have English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Arabic, Chinese. But you can't, in South Africa, use the most spoken home language to navigate your way through South Africa. So we managed to find a hack through technology to be able to create our own language preference. I'm going to play 3 files. One is the case study. It'll kind of unpack everything. And then I'll play 2 radio spots. Hopefully you like it and we didn't bastardize the language. But hopefully enjoy the radio. Thank you.
All right. Another day of 9 to 5 in.
All right.
Everybody loves Waze, the navigation app that translates data from your mobile device into real-time reports so you can avoid traffic, potholes, and the police. You can use Waze in 98 languages, including Arabic, Mandarin, and even a boy band.
Have a pleasant drive.
But we still can't use it in our most widely spoken language, isiZulu. Waze uses English, which is only number 6, and Afrikaans, only number 3. So we created by Nissan, the first voice assistant that warns you like only a Zulu can. When a Zulu gives you a warning,
we call it war.
You listen. The language uses phonetic sounds so you can hear the danger inside every word. Sounds like a break-in. Sounds like a car rolling. Sounds like bad weather. We hacked the personal voice recorder feature on Waze to upload 41 key Zulu commands to help our users avoid danger without the need for translation.
Jika kwesokudla. Jika kwesokunxele. Asishone khona. Uzofahla.
This allowed us to create a shareable link accessed via the Waze app, as well as content for a nationwide integrated campaign. The cost to upload a new voice on Waze is $75,000. We did it for less than 5. Nissan is rolling out the next set of languages, isiXhosa, Sesotho, and Setswana, to help give more indigenous languages a voice.
It is delicious.
Any app can give out directions. Only one navigates danger in a language you truly understand.
Imodia duma. Kodwa usisubheke emuva. Usaqhama nehluthu. Usaqhama.
usulipi akaboni imoto yoginqika phezu sinda ngoba uhamba ngeNissan enoshwi amehlo kubona ingozi saqa this is Vini. Kuthi amaconce kuthiwa amathempukane uhamba unyuka amaqhubu wehlele emigodini namaqhabuqhabuzi emalahleni uthi usaqhukelana nemfucumfucu yogeqisa qhamuka inqola yamalahli yequmqwaqo sinda ngoba uhamba ngeNissan enoshwi amehlo kubona ingozi saqhamuka
Thank you.
Usathi shwi. Ushona khona. Siya khona. Sizofika la siya khona. Wayibona le ndaba?
Yebo sizofika.
Okay, akere hona le Sezotho, Sezopedi, etloba eng? Zuvenda. Zuvenda, yes. We are also happy that the director of Book Dash, another one of the innovations that will make you have, a hold on to hope that we don't gather in vain, Miss Dorette Lowe, and she has a message for us that will be played on.
My name is Dorette Lowe, and I'm one of the directors at Book Dash. Book Dash is a social impact publishing organization. We create books for children under 5, and they are African picture books made in South Africa with an innovative model where we bring together volunteers who have professional skills in illustrating and designing and writing and editing. They give their time freely, and on a Saturday in 12 hours, we make brand new children's picture books that are a gift to the world, really, from all these volunteers. We then publish those books on our website under an open license, a Creative Commons license, so that anyone in the world can use them, and they do. And then we fundraise to be able to version those books into all the official languages in South Africa and to print them. And to date, we've printed 3 million copies of our books, and we have published 186 original storybooks in this way. And with all the language versions, it's a library of more than 800 books. These can all be read freely on our website, which is bookdash.org. Most of our books are created in English because it's the common language between all the different creatives who work together. But we always ask the writers in particular if they can version their stories immediately on the day into another South African language to do that. And the reason for that is that we know that children must read books in the language that they're most familiar with. And that is how we link into the Indigenous Languages project of the UN. It's very important for us to have more books, more copies of our books distributed in the other South African official languages than in English. And so far, we've managed to do that. For us, it's incredibly important that there is a focus on Indigenous languages, because unfortunately, in many societies like ours, the dominant language is seen as the aspirational language. In some communities, parents only want their children to receive English copies of our books. And so we often work with the distribution partners to help parents understand that even though English might be the school language one day, when your child is very young, it's very important for them to hear many stories in their home language and to build the foundational literacy skills, to have a rich input in the home language, and then move on to the language that they will use in their schooling and in their studies. Our role in that whole value chain of kind of galvanizing around the UN decade is to provide high quality free resources to organizations that work in promoting reading in the home language. So it's important for us that our books that validate a child's lived experience and where they can recognize themselves, they say, that little girl looks like me, or, oh yes, my Gogo also lives in a house like that. That kind of validation is really important, and that's an important aspect of our books that we try to emphasize as well. So it's about recognition and encouragement of the use of home language, and also our books are great because they reflect the children's reality, but in a very fun way, and makes them feel validated and important.
And with that,
Sayivala lezozo.
Siyayivala lezozo. We are requesting Dr. Isaac Mdawe from UJ to come and give us our closing address.
Sanibonani. Limaseyari. Inshekani. We are grateful that the South African Commission for UNESCO has endorsed Pendoring and the Indigenous Languages Imbizo. The Imbizo came at the right time. The organizers of this event, I would like to say to you, today you have made history. You know, the interest of so many people to attend this Imbizo was amazing. And it also showed that meetings such as this are long overdue. We are also grateful to all the invaluable ideas that have been shared during this Imbizo. I think it is high time that we come together as a multilingual South Africa to develop and speak our languages with pride. Let us be inspired by the opportunity that is ahead of us. That is the implementation of the UN International Decade of Indigenous Languages 2022 to 2032 in South Africa. You know, I have a desire that at the end of 2032, we should come together and evaluate ourselves. And when we come to evaluate, everyone should just speak isiZulu, isiVenda, isiNdebele, without translators. Let me say the Department of African Languages at UJ knows that communication is essential for assessing and creating knowledge. For those who would like to learn isiZulu and Sesotho sa Leboa, we have introduced the short learning program. People who are interested may start learning isiZulu and Sesotho sa Leboa from January, February 2023. In these courses, you don't only learn to say Sawubona, Dumelang, but you learn even the culture of the language, of the different languages and the groups, language groups. This is actually a rare opportunity for us to be involved. And I heard that there are some challenges ahead of us, but those challenges are actually opportunities. Therefore, I want to just read some few lines from Burton Bailey's poems, where he says opportunity. He says, with doubt and dismay you are smitten. You think there's no chance for you, son? Why? The best books haven't been written. The best race hasn't been run. The best scores haven't been made yet. The best song hasn't been sung. The best tune hasn't been played yet. Cheer up, for the world is young. No chance? Why? The world is just eager for things that you ought to create. Its store of true wealth is still meager. Its needs are incessant and great. It yearns for more power and beauty, more loyalty, labor, and duty. No chance? Why? There is nothing but chance, for the best verse hasn't been rhymed yet. The highest peak hasn't been climbed yet. Don't worry and fret, faint-hearted. The chances have just begun. For the best jobs haven't been started. The best work has been done. Thank you.
Thank you also for housing us. We have come to the very end of this Imbizo. I think we are all hopeful that it is the first of many, and to the organizers, partners, and sponsors, Rahlaba Tedi, nna ke thakgaletše gore mamohla ke bongwathile bo fodile ke šoma ke dutše fase.
Nane ndoriboa nga mandesa, Nzakhenza, ke a leboga. Thank you so much to everyone for attending, and thank you so much for having us.
Have a lovely day.